Our guest today is Anshu Gupta, a social entrepreneur known as the clothing man. So we are going to talk to him about social entrepreneurship in India and what are the opportunities there. Also, we are going to talk about his take on cash and trash. Anshu, welcome to our show. And thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
So let us start first with social entrepreneurship. What is social entrepreneurship?
So, I personally feel very simple definition, although hundreds of definitions are there, everybody comes with a new definition. But I personally feel that instead of talking about a so-called donor or beneficiary or me and you, this is one way of working where you treat everyone as a stakeholder. So there is no dole, there is no handout, there's something like, okay, fine, I use your wisdom or whatever resources you have and we put in our resources, and that's how we just work together. It's not about just because I'm sitting with some money or some new idea, so I am the king and you are the so-called beneficiary. I think in the social entrepreneurship, I personally feel that that is something which is fading away, which is the most important part, because at the end of the day, charity can do to some extent, okay, but charity certainly cannot.
But is social entrepreneurship charity now?
It's not. I think it is a much improved version of doing something for someone, and in a way you do something for yourself also, because it's not about just feeding or just taking care of your education. It's about making you a stakeholder in the entire process, where I listen to you, where I say that, okay, you tell me what is the problem. It's not about that I just see it from my lenses, and I see from my lenses the problem and also the solution. I want to wear your lenses and see, and then find a problem in the solution.
What are the two myths about social entrepreneurship?
Okay, so I think the biggest myth is like a whole lot of people think that only social entrepreneurship can change the world, which is a very big myth, because yes, this is one way of working. It's very simple, and in this world where you have issues in volume, you need to understand that there is no space for either or. You always have to talk about and. I mean, why do I really debate on whether this is good or that is good? If there is something which is making sense and bringing some change in the society, why don't I just work on that? So it's not that social entrepreneurship is the only solution. It is one of the solutions, and it can only tackle certain issues. Certain issues need to be tackled through different ways. It's very simple. And the second is that I think people need to understand that it is very easy to say that I am a social entrepreneur, just because I am working for so-called financially poor people. And a whole lot of people unfortunately claim that working for so-called financially poor people does not mean social entrepreneurship. I mean, if you come out with a 2 rupees soap for the rural population somewhere, please don't understand that. Don't call yourself, just a social entrepreneur. That's a market, and if you do it in the market way, or if you rather create need instead of fulfilling needs, or fulfilling existing needs, don't claim that you are a social entrepreneur.
So now, is there any difference subtle difference between social entrepreneurship in India and in the West, or it is the basic fundamentals are the same?
I think the fundamentals are same, but yes, the kind of issues we all need to tackle in different parts of the world are totally different. And the bigger part of the difference is the volume. Like if you talk about India, everything we have to do in volume. So million, as I often say, is a very small figure in India. That's just the population of a few colonies.
Sure.
There. So until unless you think of scale, until unless you think of volume, there's no fun there.
Do you have any numbers about social entrepreneurship organizations in India, like in terms of a dollar volume or number or something? Like?
No, it's very tough to say, and it is too early to say. And I don't think that ever in our life we'll be able to define that, because even the definition that so far is not clear. Lot of social organizations all across the globe, it's not about India, who are into pure social work, as we say, even they want to call themselves social entrepreneurs or enterprises, because that's the buzzword.
So when this word, the social entrepreneurship, was officially launched and coined in India? How many years ago it was?
To be honest, I'm a wrong person to answer because a lot of people tell us entrepreneur and all that. So I always tell people that listen, I always studied in Hindi medium, so I didn't even know how many E's come in entrepreneur.
Okay.
Okay, and we didn't start going to become an entrepreneur. There was something which was bothering us. We started working on that. Yes, the way we were working, and then Ashoka came in live, and then Schwab, and a whole lot of other people who started calling us entrepreneur. Maybe that is why we are called entrepreneur.
Okay. Now, I'm glad that you mentioned Goose. So tell us about Goose first. That what exactly Goose does and how it became such a buzzword in India.
Also, became a buzzword. I don't know, but yeah, I think we are just trying to tackle certain non-issues in the society because there are issues and there are non-issues. So we touched upon a very basic need of humankind, which is cloth. Okay, and what we said that you talk about three basic needs of humankind, you say roti, kapda, makan, food, cloth, and shelter. But if you see the development issues across the globe, even today, you see Millennium Development Goals, Sustainability Goal, Planning Commission in India, or many other across the globe. It's not about India. You have some 150 issues from domestic violence to global warming. You will never find clothing written as a subject. Which is very ironical, when it is such a basic need for me and you and for every single person on this earth, how come that has never been a development subject? Why cloth has become a disaster relief material, so you actually need flood to be flooded with clothes, or why it has only remained a charitable subject object. That was the whole issue. So we touched upon, we started asking very basic questions that if earthquake is a disaster, flood is a disaster, how come winters are not disaster? Why don't we have figures of people who die or suffer due to lack of clothing in winters? That was one question. And then we also said that cloth is not about winters or weather, it is about basic dignity. I mean, me and you are wearing clothes today, in this show, not because we are feeling cold, but because it is basic human dignity, it is a basic human need. So we started working on that. And we started with about 67%.
When did we start?
1998 informally, when I left my job, and 99 formally, when we were registered. The whole idea was that fine, we will make it an issue and we'll reposition it, so that it becomes a development subject, which is still, it needs to happen. It has not happened so far, to be honest. But the larger thing was that we said that in urban parts we want to change the mindset, because the moment people say that I want to donate cloth, we challenge that and we said that it is a wrong notion. It's a wrong way of saying it, because if you give $1,000 to someone, you might call it donation. If you give maybe 10 kg rice, call it donation. But when you give your second-hand used material, with what right do you call it donation? It is actually a discard. So that thought process has to change. It's not about vocabulary. And the people who are using your second-hand material, actually these guys are doing a service to you, because they extend the life cycle of something on which you spend your hard-earned money.
And your target is?
Target is huge. Target is,
who are like typical profile?
So urban India, anybody and everybody is a target who can give, who has a lot to give. Rural India and other parts of rural world that way in the time to come is anybody who does not have, and thus there is no dearth of people. The only difference is that we don't want to do charity with the people who need it, because as I said that it has been a charitable subject object. Because if you talk about the so-called poor people, or in India if I talk about the village people, the biggest asset of village people is their self-respect or dignity. I mean, you don't find beggars in the villages. Begging is a city phenomenon. So we have no right to do charity.
Very good point. Sure.
We have no right to do charity there. That's where we came up with this massive initiative called Cloth for Work. So what we are doing now is that across 22 states of India, people in the villages take up hardcore development work in the villages. They dig well, they clean ponds, they make roads with the local resources. They just cleaned about 100,000 square meter of Dal Lake in Srinagar, as per their need. It's not like a top-down that we decide. They decide. And then after working on that, they are rewarded with this material, cloth, utensil, footwear, all kind of second-hand material. I mean, we deal with about 3,000 tons of material now in a year.
So typical, if you could just briefly explain the model, that how it works. You collect, then you give. How the model works there?
So there are three stakeholders. Okay. So collection happens from people like me and you. Okay, and it is largely organized by the volunteers. Then it comes to our processing centers. and we process it. Why do I say process? Because there is a big gap in what we receive and what is needed. I think the biggest problem with so-called donation is that you give what you have, you don't give what people need. That's the world phenomenon.
Sure.
So that's the gap we try to fill, and we try to match the needs of different communities on the basis of geography and what kind of things people need. So that's the second part, which is our own team. The third part is the implementation, where we tie up with a lot of local organizations, units of Indian Army, or many other institutions. They take up this cloth for work kind of initiatives, and all kind of work happen as per the local needs. So suppose a village needs a new well, so people in the village will get into that and dig a well with the local wisdom, local resources, and then they will be rewarded in the shape of a family kit. So every family will get a kit. The kit will have enough clothing, maybe blanket, bedsheet, utensils, some footwear.
How many volunteers your booth has today?
We don't count.
Yeah.
But I think people do call it one of the largest civic participation movement there. I mean, apart from, on one hand, you are called leading enterprise or whatever. On the other hand, I think we are really happy that people call it the largest civic participation movement.
Now, I also like this phrase, cash and trash. So if you can just highlight a little bit about that as well.
So, in a way, something which has been like a traditional charitable thing globally, the second-hand material. In our case, in the last few years, we have been able to revive the traditional practice of barter and community labor. The more important part is that there are two parallel currencies which have come up. So the people who receive the material, say in the villages and all that, they pay back in a currency called labor. They are rewarded in a currency called material. So if you see our model, it is a barter between two new currencies, which is labor and material. And money is for the logistics of it.
So this is what separates you from charitable organizations.
Maybe, yes.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, because something which has been absolute charitable is now a currency. As we say, it's this is the genesis of a parallel economy, which is not cash-based but trash-based. That's true for this economy. And in the developing nations, and to be honest, even in the developed nation, in certain pockets, all these things are very valuable, because me and you also, in our life, ultimately, we end up spending more money in buying material. That's how we spend our money. So that material is important for every single person on this earth. So when you take care of the material part of the communities, in a way you also free up their meager resources to be spent on other hard-pressing needs. So it's not about just collecting and distributing or giving. It's a larger economic model which people need to understand.
Okay. Now, coming back to some basic fundamentals of social entrepreneurship. Say, for example, there's a young kid who had just graduated from college and wants to do something for the community, and this is the one area he selects. What are few do's and don'ts in social entrepreneurship?
So one thing which is very clear is that just because I want to become a social entrepreneur, I have to do something for the society. That does not happen.
Okay.
It's very simple. There is something which needs to bother you. There is something for which you are passionate about, and you really want to do something. Then only you should get into this. I'm very clear about it, because it should not become another fashionable career in life. It has a meaning, and it has a very deep meaning, and it has a need. Right now, what we have seen is that yes, the charity sector, the volunteer sector has been doing some good fundamental work, but fortunately, a new thing has come up where you can really solve certain issues in a much more systematic manner. So it's important to do that. So that passion is important. And there is no harm in doing the same thing in different way. I mean, just because I have to become a social entrepreneur, I will do something totally different. I mean, that's something I don't agree with it. Most important is that there is something which is bothering you, and you really want to come up with a solution of that. And don't call yourself social entrepreneur. Let the world call you if you really do something meaningful. Because as I always say to my team in so many sessions, that there are two ways of working. One is that you talk about the work, the other is the work talks about you. I think with the social media in place and all this Facebook journalism and Twitter and all that, all of us are really, really in a hurry to project first and do later.
Sure.
That's very risky.
Now, coming back to you, you mentioned that in order to be really a social entrepreneur, if you want to use that term, you had to have a passion and you need to have some sort of idea that why you want to do that. What you do, how that happened to you, how you got interested in the subject.
Oh, I mean, there are stories, but to be honest, one which
Pick one story.
which bothers a lot even today after 25 years. This goes back to 1990 when I met this person who used to pick up unclaimed dead bodies. Like every single big city in the world, Delhi also has a sizable chunk of homeless people, and a lot of people die. So this guy used to pick up unclaimed bodies, and when he said that in winters his work goes up, and many times he has so much of work that he cannot handle it. And then I found that every 24 hours in the range of 5-6 kilometers he was picking up 10 to 12 dead bodies, and his summer's average used to be 4 to 5. And then he had a little daughter who really literally shook me when she said that when I feel cold, I hug the dead body and sleep. It does not trouble me, it does not turn around.
And which city it happened? Where
It happened in Delhi.
In Delhi.
But what I understood, I also, like any other person in the world, I thought that this is the Delhi slum or footpath phenomena. But then I realized that it is not about India, it is not about Delhi. India is still doing pretty well in so many other things, and we are, in certain cases we are doing well. It is the globally, it's a global phenomena. Why? Because the people like us, the so-called literate or the people with resources, never understood that winters are an annual disaster or clothing is such an important issue. I mean, despite the fact, especially in the development sector, social enterprise sector, or for the government, that the first visible sign of poverty is actually cloth, if you see worldwide. So this is still a question to me, from myself also and from millions of others, that how come we ignored this basic thing? And that gave the entire issue of the non-issues thing, that there are hundreds of these non-issues which people like us just ignore. So it's not about India, it's not about that little girl. Fine, that little girl, at least we were able to identify. There must be thousands of those little girls all across the world.
So now your idea has been tested in India, has been proven there. You have any plans to take it global?
Yes, for sure. I mean, we are, right from the beginning, we are very sure. We always said that we don't want to grow as an organization, we want to grow as an idea. We are working on the replication kit where so many other people can really replicate the entire model. It is absolutely ready to be replicated, and so many other economies can really take it if they value it. Because it is an economic model. If they think that it's another way to do charity, then obviously it is not applicable anywhere. If they take it as an economic model and also to take care of some certain basic fundamental issues which we raised, it can really go anywhere. And we are absolutely happy, ready to work with any nation, whosoever wants to do it. We might not open our office everywhere, but I think the idea needs to be replicated.
Excellent. Anshu, thank you very much for your time.